Now in the last video, while testing the little Cybertruck Mini PC, it was clear there was quite a lot of performance headroom left in it. I mean, it is a high-end laptop CPU gaming on its iGPU, so you'd kinda hope so. And in today's video, we're gonna try and extract as much performance as possible from that CPU. Of course, we're gonna do it in the dumbest way possible. This is a 4090, by the way. Now this is a process that I imagine isn't going to be straightforward because our little mini PC doesn't conveniently have a 4090 shaped hole we can just stuff this into. But luckily, it does have a truck bed, so, you know, it kind of fits quite nicely on the wedge shape of it. But now we need to figure out how to plug it in. Now my first thought was to just use an M.2 to PCIe Express adapter from the glory hole on the bottom and then plug the graphics card in. That seems pretty straightforward. The problem is though, I'm pretty sure this is the only accessible M.2 slot on the mini PC. So if we plug a graphics card into it, where are we gonna plug our storage in? But anyway, to weigh all our options, I think we're gonna have to tear this thing down again, which I'm a bit worried to do because it pretty much broke a bunch of it the first time I tore it down, so hopefully I don't break more of it. But we're gonna have to do that to see what kind of options we have. Okay, so that's our one very easily accessible M.2 slot. There is another one, but it's got a bit of a problem. And here's slot number 2, but as you can see, there's a pretty clear problem with it. It's blocked by the side of the car. So because all the ports on this random motherboard they found in a parts bin doesn't line up with the construction of the car, we can only use one M.2 device. Although, maybe we can make a plan. And the plan was to just cut a hole in the side of the mini PC to stick an SSD through. But there was immediately a problem. Oh no, the slot's in a really bad spot. It's in line with the back wheel. With concern brewing that my only option was to just run the system naked on the desk so I could access all the holes, I decided to go look for some more options.
A few moments later.
I also found this adapter, which is another option, which converts an M.2 Wi-Fi card slot into PCIe for us to plug a graphics card into. It is a 4090 though, so I don't think this is gonna go super well in terms of bandwidth, or even work, I can't remember. So let's quickly test this one out, and then we'll take it from there, I guess. This little adapter is keyed for M.2 Wi-Fi as opposed to just a normal M.2 slot. So that means we are gonna lose Wi-Fi capability, but we're gonna gain 4090 capability, so I think that's a worthwhile trade-off. And then we have to struggle to pop the Wi-Fi antenna off. Oh yeah, we also need to plug our storage back in. Oh yeah, this looks perfectly reasonable. Now we just need to plug it in and see if it works. To plug everything in, I had to rearrange the setup a little bit, but soon I was ready for my first test fire. I don't know, I feel like this is a very brave first attempt because I can't imagine that it's just gonna output video here as opposed to over the iGPU without any intervention. But we'll see. I was right. The system refused to output a signal. So I swapped back to the mini PC's video output with some promising results. Oh, that's crazy. It finds a basic display adapter. Because we don't have internet, it can't find drivers for it, but that's very promising. But unfortunately, the very limited BIOS didn't have an option for us to switch over to a different graphics card. So the BIOS option didn't work, so now I'm gonna install drivers for the graphics card and then see if I can switch it over that way. Nvidia's drivers had no problem finding the 4090 and installing, but it didn't give me the option to switch outputs over. However, it did give me the option to render games on the 4090 and then just use the iGPU's video out. But initially, games would just crash with that option enabled. So I went into the BIOS, changed some more settings, and finally got a game to run technically on the 4090. Okay, well it didn't immediately crash when I applied settings, which is good enough for me. So let's properly reassemble our Cybertruck Mini PC so we can see how this external GPU setup runs in style. Now what means that this setup is potentially going to work really easily is that this is right below the chairs in the cabin of the car, and those chairs are removable and have like a hole underneath them, so we could use that hole to route this cable very easily. But while I reassemble this system, let me quickly explain to you why this adapter is probably going to devastate our gaming performance. An M.2 Wi-Fi card slot isn't quite the same as the M.2 slot that you'd plug your very fast NVMe storage into. An M.2 Wi-Fi card slot only has 2 PCIe lanes available as opposed to the 4 on a normal M.2 slot, let alone the 16 lanes that the 4090 is used to. So this little adapter is the graphics card equivalent of autoerotic asphyxiation, which I guess, does that mean it's gonna run better? I don't know, whatever, at least it'll look cool. Okay, so I'm just gonna feed this out the back door, and then we have a seamless way to strap a graphics card to its roof. Okay, well, it's not quite in the correct place. I wanted it more in the truck bed, but cable length is cable length, and it still looks pretty cool. Ooh, the boop power button is a bit broken, but it's still kinda usable. Oh no, Counter-Strike 2 is running significantly worse than it was on the iGPU. We're gonna have to go into the BIOS and see if there's something we can do about this. Ugh. And after changing some BIOS settings, it kinda helped. Okay, well these settings are a lot better than what we were getting before. I mean, significantly better, but we're still getting about half the performance we got with the iGPU, which isn't great considering that we have the mightiest GPU around lying on the Cyberpunk truck. So after testing these games, I definitely have to ghetto rig some M.2 Oculink action so that we can get proper performance from this. Aside from that, the power draw is also hilarious on our 4090. Oh, Doom Eternal at 1080p medium settings is running better than on the iGPU. I mean, barely, but it's better, and better is an improvement. Now, one of the main reasons I wanted to try this was to see if we could fix the really bad stutters we were getting in Cyberpunk with the little Cybertruck. Oh, well, there you go. All we had to do was drop a, what, $1,500 graphics card on the Cybertruck PC, and it's kind of fixed our stutters. It's not gone, that's still not a smooth frame time graph, but it's definitely running at least marginally better than it was on the iGPU. Bumping up the resolution to 1440p doesn't lose us any frame rate, which is interesting and I guess makes this whole setup completely worth it. So now that we've seen the kind of devastation wrought to a system's performance by using a Wi-Fi card slot, even a modern one, to plug a graphics card into it, let's have a look at an Oculink setup. The first step was to tear the Mini PC down for the 17th time today to reveal both its succulent M.2 slots. And just like that, we've got easy access to our second M.2 slot, and the system is like, more or less, still fully assembled. And how this works is pretty straightforward. First, we pop in the little M.2 connector, which, we don't have a way to screw down. Oh, I have an idea. There we go. Problem solved. And then we have our little PCB that we can use to connect our 4090 with. Plug that in. And then we need to use my 3D printed gaming mouse to fail at wedging up the graphics card. So now unfortunately we do lose boop technology here, but oh my word, I forgot to turn the power supply on for the graphics card. Just briefly though, just briefly. We're good. Oh wait. Oh, it worked! It did! It just fixed itself. Very good. Now I'm gonna test the system using the same settings as before, which is a really stupid way to run a 4090, but it's a good way to have consistent results. Oh yeah, there we go. We're getting 250 frames per second with our GPU doing nothing. This is a lot more what I was anticipating. In all fairness, this is still not what I was expecting in terms of performance. 250 frames per second at 1080p feels really terrible for a 4090. Going up to 1440p high settings hasn't lost us any performance, and our 4090 is still doing nothing. Nice. Okay, there we go. 300 frames per second at 1080p medium settings. Again, this is a very dumb way to run a game with this graphics card. But we're finally getting a whole bunch of performance here. And look at the CPU utilization. We finally managed our goal of stressing that laptop chip. Now, of course, Cyberpunk at 1080p low hasn't scaled wildly because CPU wasn't particularly happy even with the super neutered 4090. But here, 120 frames per second, it feels good aside from that one big stutter. But now let's see if we can max out our 4090, starting out with, I don't know, that? Nice, we've lost about half our frame rate, and look at the power draw, which is getting into the realms of 4090. So now let's bump it to 1440p. And just like that, we finally got the RTX 4090 in its comfort zone, drawing about as much power as the Ivory Coast. And we're getting about the same frame rate we got with the iGPU, funnily enough. Although here, the frame pacing is much better. So I guess the takeaway from this video is to stuff your graphics card into the biggest hole you can find. Which brings me to the end of the video. If you missed the first part where we initially check out the Cybertruck Mini PC, a suggestion for that video will pop up in a second. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel, and until the next one, bye bye.